To politics after proudly announcing yesterday that he was going to travel to Israel at the end of the month to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. GOP frontrunner Donald Trump has had a change of heart, or maybe the Israelis have, tweeting this morning, quote, "I have decided to postpone my trip to Israel and to schedule my meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu at a later date after I become president of the U.S." Now, to give you context here, the decision could very well be because of Prime Minister Netanyahu's rejection of Trump's call to ban all Muslims from entering the U.S. This is the situation in the Middle East becomes even more precarious. We have learned that a Guantanamo Bay detainee, upon release, has become a leader in al-Qaeda. And Fox News was the first to report that Iran has been conducting a series of ballistic missile tests that violates the recently approved nuclear deal. All of these issues our next president, whoever he or she may be, will be faced with. So let's bring in one of the men tasked with educating one of the leading candidates, George Birnbaum. He is the foreign policy advisor now, brand new, to Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson. He's also the former chief of staff for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So perfect timing here. Thank you for joining us exclusively, George. Let us first start, though, with being pretty honest here. We know that Dr. Ben Carson, from many interviews, has not had a real grasp of geopolitics. What are you going to do to get him up to speed yesterday? Because the learning curve is vertical.
Well, first, let me say it's great to be with you today, Liz.
Thank you.
I've worked with several presidents and prime ministers around the world, and I can tell you, especially the President of the United States, I don't think any man or woman is prepared for the volumes of information needed on a daily basis to make policy decisions, especially as it comes to foreign policy and national security. I mean, that's the reason the President of the United States has a National Security Council to filter that information, give him or her the highlights, and then be able to take his vision, his philosophy, and that information and create a policy out of it. Dr. Carson certainly, I don't think anyone would argue, has a very clear vision and philosophy about where he wants to take America in the future, as well as help her allies, such as Israel. So the team he's put together, including General Bob Dees, myself, and others, our job is to do what a National Security Council would do, is to take all the volumes of information that we think he would need, filter it to the fine points, give it to him to digest, and allow him to take his vision and his philosophy and put together that information in order to formulate a policy.
I get that it's broad, and every reporter wants to do a gotcha situation out there of what's the difference between Slovenia and Slovakia. But let's talk broadly and not specifically. I want to play this interview, at least part of it, that Dr. Carson did with Chris Wallace, where he was widely criticized because he devolved into word salad to a very simple question that Chris Wallace had asked, and then I'll let you respond. Here it is.
But who would you call first specifically to put together an international military coalition?
My point being that if we get out there and we really lead, and it appears that we're making progress, then all of the Arab states and even the non-Arab states, who I think are beginning to recognize that the jihad movement is global. It is not just local in the Middle East.
And we could go on because Chris had said, okay, but who'd be the first person you'd call, which leader? And he really didn't have an answer there. That's pretty broad, George. To me, you say, all right, we got to include Putin or not. We've got to bring in the Saudis or not. The United Arab Emirates, they've got a big military. But what will be Dr. Carson's answer on that?
Well, for those of us who've worked in the Middle East and understand the nuances and the sensitivities of many of the players there, the answer actually was the right answer, because right now I can tell you that in the Middle East, in Central Europe, Western Europe, people are looking for the United States to take the lead before anyone is willing to step up to the plate and help in the way that needs to be done. So Dr. Carson actually was quite correct. Until the President of the United States steps up and sets the tone, calling anyone else is not worth the time of day. So we really first need a president who's going to set the tone for leadership, and then he can start making those calls. I think it was the right answer. It was a thoughtful answer, actually.
Okay. Well, some people on both sides of the aisle thought it was a little messy, but we've got to get to Israel, and certainly what's happening with Donald Trump, who has said that he would ban Muslims from entering the country based on their religion. Where will Dr. Ben Carson stand on that? The Israelis don't like that position at all.
Well, I think even the Israeli Prime Minister, who fights on a daily basis radical Islamic terrorism within his country and threats from radical Islam around his country, understood that the comments of Mr. Trump were not only over the top, but really violate all the basic rights and freedoms that both Americans and Israelis cherish and
Will
fight
that
for.
be
and
where
are the
Dr.
reason we're the
Carson stands
target.
on it? Will Dr. Carson stand on that position?
I'm not a spokesman for Dr. Carson. I haven't talked with him about this position, but I know Dr. Carson truly values America. He values the rights of people to come to America and become Americans. As Ronald Reagan said, you can go to France, never be a Frenchman, go to China, never be a Chinaman, but you come to America, you become an American. I think that's a value that Dr. Carson absolutely embraces.
Well, we welcome you back and Dr. Carson anytime, because we are very interested and our viewers are interested to see where he stands on these issues. George, thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Liz. All the best.
George Birnbaum. He's foreign policy advisor, brand new to the GOP presidential candidate of Ben Carson, joining us in a Fox Business exclusive.